Fellas, bring it in.
Here we go. Okay, Scully.
Now, we've had to deal with more than any other team has had to deal with coming into this event. We are this close. We could have been undefeated against England, but this is our last round. It's been a great fucking weekend. We win this, we're guaranteed a podium spot. Depending on tons of other scenarios, we could still walk out as world champs. So let's carry ourselves like champs, let's beat them like champs. Let's get up. All right? So fight for every fucking point you can get. Do everything you think you've learned over the weekend. Hide if you need to. Push if you need to. And let's get it. Let's go. America on 3. 1, 2, 3. America!
Frontline Gaming presents 40K Stat Center with your hosts Val Heffelfinger and the Falcon.
Coming to you well after the fact from the Master Hall of the Novi Sad Fair in fabulous Novi Sad, Serbia, it's the European Team Championship 2019.
First off, in the blue corner, in the red and white trunks, refusing to weigh in because they are far too polite to interrupt the conversation, it's Team Canada!
And in the red corner, in the blue and gold star-spangled trunk smelling of freedom, gasoline, and your mama's apple pie, Team America!
And in yet another corner, in the green and yellow sweat-drenched tank tops, the thunder from down under, it's Team Australia.
In our final corner, in the white and red trunks covered in the blood and tears of the defeated, here come the Lions, it's Team England.
And your referee and judge tonight is the one, the only, Neil Kerr.
Now come in, touch gloves, and have a good fight, boys. Let's get ready to rumble. I don't think I'm going to get paid millions of dollars to do that.
No, probably not. But you know what? It's Warhammer. Who gets paid millions of dollars anyway?
Hey, we're getting there. I think some people are getting paid a few dollars. Welcome, folks. It's to a very special episode. Our first special episode, in fact. Tonight, we're going to be covering the ETC in depth, which means that all other tournament coverage has been bumped to next week.
Now, have no fear. You'll be getting to hear about the exploits of the Latin Gandalf, Adam Solis, the destructive power of Bethany Taylor, and that whimsical chef with heft, Ben Cherwin, next week when we go back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Suffice to say, we just had too much we wanted to cover today when it came to the glitz and glamour of the ETC and did not want to leave anyone without their due. It also happened that our absolutely incredible 40K stats correspondents went well above and beyond and netted up hours of interviews and coverage from the premier teams this year, plus Canada. Before we get into that, though, we would be remiss if we did not give one final shout-out to the Capital City Bloodbath this weekend in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. As we've said ad nauseum for months now, we will be lending our voices and our minds to that of the honest wargamer to provide the utmost and semi-watchable 40K content.
So in that vein, I went through basically all of the lists and units that are going to be showing up in the Capital City Bloodbath meta. I parsed them all down from Best Coast Pairings and sent them off to Darren and Chris from Canhammer so that they could, spread the word on what you can expect to see. When the event's over, I'll actually be doing what I did for the LVO back in February, and I'll actually break down unit by unit how basically everything that showed up at that event fared. If you're really interested in hearing what units are showing up and in what numbers, I know that Darren was planning on doing a special Canhammer episode tonight on August 14th. To be aired at some point. Who knows when they decide to actually do that. And they'll have graphs and pretty things, I'm sure, to show you just what's up in Ottawa next weekend.
Yeah, so for the preview, I'm sure you'll be able to catch that on Twitch, on the Canhammer TV channel, as well as on YouTube. I believe they have the same handle there. Of course, when the live games start kicking off, I believe it's pretty early in the morning, something like 9 a.m. Do we know?
I don't know. I'm just going to show up.
I'm just showing
Hope for the
up
best.
Too. Hope for the best. Anyway, pretty early in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, will be the first round live from Ottawa. That's on, once again, the Honest Wargamer on Twitch. And usually simulcasts, I think, to Facebook, but not YouTube. So, anywho, Honest Wargamer, the Falcon, the Heffelfinger, the Symes, the Scrivo, I believe, is also coming. So it'll be a packed and also Max Dubois.
Yeah, Max Dubois showed up. He decided to grace us with his ever-loving presence.
That is an ever-loving, good, awesome time, guys. This is almost too much to handle, I think, as far as an internet stream is concerned.
For sure. And it will be the best 40K content that has ever been released. It's a low bar, I know, but we're going to knock it out of the park.
Of course, the Vulcan means besides this episode, and I'm not even putting it on, I think we got a doozy here for our audience tonight.
Oh, I agree. People definitely came out in droves. We got some excellent interviews from 3 of the 4 best teams that showed up at ETC and Canada.
And Canada. All right, so I think Frontline Gaming still, because we are a part of the Frontline Gaming Network, they still have a 20% off mat sale going on right now. So head on over to frontlinegaming.org to take advantage of that. Of course, if you're a fan of the show or other shows on the network, please consider supporting the Chapter Tactics Patreon, or in fact, if you're a fan of the game and the ITC in general, consider supporting the ITC Patreon. That's what I do. I chip in a few bucks every month.
It's a real good way to go. They both definitely offer their perks. That on that FLG plug for the mats, I mean, I gotta say, it was supposed to be over this week, but I believe they did so well that they extended it another week. Though they are selling out of some of their more popular items, so you really should take a look if you're interested at all. Lastly, one thing we should plug, and we plug it every week, is that Best Coast Pairings. Those guys over there, they really do a really good job of keeping us in the loop on what's happening in competitive 40K. Without them, my website, this podcast, really, like the game in general wouldn't be where it is today. So big kudos to those guys. Do we have a bump for them?
Oh, we certainly do. They always get us over that first bump.
Tournament news is made possible by BestCoastPairings.com. Download the BCP app to organize events for just about any tabletop game system. Download the player app to easily find and participate in events from around the world. Subscribe to BCP for as little as $5 a month to support the team and unlock additional features. Available for iOS and Android. BestCoastPairings.com. Competitive events easier.
The European Team Championships, a long-standing tradition of tabletop diplomacy, brought 36 nations to Novi Sad, Serbia to battle it out for cultural supremacy.
Operating every year since 2006, this marked the 3rd time that the ETC has returned to Novi Sad. Is it the incredible culture in the venue, the organizational prowess, the exchange rate? Who really knows? But the ETC sure loves its Serbia.
For those of you who didn't make a national team this year, the ETC is comprised of 3 core events, 2 no one cares about, and then 40K.
Modeling themselves after their favorite corrupt international sporting organization, FIFA, the ETC invites all countries that are able to send an 8-person team to compete for the title. Each country must field a team of at least 4 nationals and up to 4 Niknanovadis. Countries that border Russia may also field up to 8 Russians. And according to Mike Brandt, Team England can also field only Welshmen if they like, but that is probably because he got the country confused with the grape juice, much like how Nova Open is confused with the competitive Warhammer event.
As with all incredibly awesome team tournaments, the ETC limits each team to using each codex source once. No Forge World or Index options, though. They aren't savages.
With their players selected and lists created and vetted, the teams then set off on an arduous month-long journey via donkey train through the Balkans, guided by 2 Sherpas and the angle the sun reflects off of Nick Rose's head. Finally, upon arrival in Novi Sad, they kick things off with a spirited evening of folk dancing, savapi, and vodka shots.
The tournament itself lasts 3 days, featuring 2 4-hour rounds per day using its own mission format. For those of you schmucks that are unaware, the ETC format is a mix of Maelstrom and Eternal War missions with additional points scored via unit kills. The VP differential at the end of each round gets assigned a differential score between 0 and 20, and the team scores are then tallied together to determine the overall winner of each matchup. Teams require a combined score between 75 and 85 for a draw, and 86 or more for a win.
At the end of it all, one country earns the right to call themselves champion and to be at least 6 months ahead of the current meta. Can I get a bump bump?
Tournament news.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Murphy from Forge the Narrative, and you're listening to 40K Stat Center.
As mentioned in the intro, we have managed to score a series of interviews and sound bites from a number of high-profile teams at the event this year. However, as homegrown Canadian boys whose hearts bleed maple syrup, beaver tails, and apologies, we cannot do an episode covering the ETC without giving our team the chance to say a piece.
So Team Canada had lofty goals heading into this year's ETC. Early on in their team selection process, both the ITC number 1 and number 2 players had signed on to play for the team, and they looked and felt like serious contenders. If only both of those players didn't play almost exactly the same army and no others. Meaning that one of them had to drop to make room for a more well-rounded affair.
Still, the nerds and basement dwellers of our country stood with pride as Captain Chris Helicopter Parent Haynes, Ridvan, Archon Scarier Martinez, Tim, It's in the Details Dietlif, Eric, The Living Massacre Marco, and Conrad Mojito Monday Motika, Dustin the Dustpan Hanshaw, Jeff Downtown Brown, Devin the Other Robot Swan, and TJ Almost Canadian Lanigan drew down upon the Novi Sad market.
I think, yeah, we definitely put in more effort into fundamentals this year. We put a lot more into the smaller details. We still struggled, though. We definitely were a bit behind in the meta, slightly. And I think it was like 3 of our lists were definitely way behind. And then it was nice this year because I would say the gap between the strong players and the weaker players was smaller. So I wouldn't necessarily say we had maybe a better team. The lower end of our team wasn't like last minute mercenaries. It wasn't, basement gamers that are going there to get drunk. It was like our weakest player was like, he can go to tournaments and beat your face in, right?
So Canada ended up having one of their best performances to date, scoring 3 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw at the Great Show in Europe, and somehow were awarded the Best Sportsmanship Award, despite having most of their members being from the least polite parts of our true north strong and free.
After dunking their round 1 grudge match versus Turkey and doing what Canada does best, dominating the United Nations, in round 2, Canada moved into their day 2 third round matchup versus Poland.
What listeners may not know about Poland is that they are god-dang 40K assassins and perennial threats to win every year. They've done it before, winning championships in 2010 and 2014, to go along with 6 silver and 7 bronze medal finishes.
In 2019, yours truly suffered the most humiliating of 6 humiliating losses at their sausage grease-covered hands. Despite what your uncle may tell you, Poland is no joke.
Yeah, after our wick, so we lost to Poland. I wouldn't say like we didn't go in there being like we're gonna lose. We went in there being like we're gonna go really hard with our matches. We're gonna play legit. What actually killed us against Poland was we did 2 mirror matches, and I think our team in general was really weak against mirror matches because their players are maybe a bit more experienced in ETC than we are, a little bit more used to that, whereas we're not so used to the mirror match.
Mirror matches aside, this did set up what would be Chris's favorite opponent of the tournament in what would become a draw versus Greece.
One of the other things is Team Greece made a reappearance this year, and we had the privilege of playing them, and they were awesome. They're all connected into the Canadian. They watch all our streams. They know us by name. TJ, Chris. Oh yeah, they knew it. It was awesome, and they were great guys. And they brought the pain, and it was really cool. Yeah, and we ended up tying them, which I think was the real highlight, because when you play a cool team that's like really, they're also there like with a lot to prove, just like we were. And then when you get a tie result, it was like, oh my God, this is like we gotta play again, guys. Like.
And that's where things stopped being so rosy. The following day, Canada walked into a Belarusian bazaar, suffering one of the most lopsided losses of the tournament and nearly getting blanked entirely, scoring a mere 6 points to Belarus's 154.
And then Sunday morning we came in and we were like, we can do this. We can actually go 4-1-1 if we really do well on the Sunday. And yeah, we drew Belarus. And yeah, so they're basically I don't know if anybody's familiar with them. They're like a Russian affiliated country. Like they're in the opposite of NATO pact, which I know politics has nothing to do with the ETC, but so they're very tight with Russia. I think a lot of their players play in Moscow, I do believe. A few of them from St. Petersburg. So they definitely train hard with the Russian team. They're no joke. They definitely are good players. But they got 4 yellow cards against us. Yeah. My perspective is, I almost want to say no comment. It was if I was from Belarus, I would be embarrassed of the way that my team represented me. The things that they tried to do before the round, during the round, and it wasn't all of them. There was a couple of them that were great by all accounts, and there was a couple of them that were terrible. And they were probably a better team than us on the tabletop. They're probably used to playing better players. They're probably, I'd even maybe give them they could have beaten us 100% clean and got no yellow cards, but they chose to do questionable things. And that's about all I think I want to say.
So it didn't sound like things went too smoothly for Canada versus Belarus, and we decided to reach out to head ref Neil Kerr for some insights on the conduct system at the ETC and to discuss some of the issues that came up this year.
I've been talking to Chris and Scary, obviously since that, because they weren't happy. They feel that we as referees did everything we could, but they're obviously still not happy of that the situation could be as it could be. I mean, it's at the ETC we track things. So players are given warnings. Those warnings are tracked. Which player, what round, why. Yellow cards are tracked from across years. You get yellow card at one ETC, it's tracked to the next one. And again, why was that yellow card there? So, and a good example in this is, so there were 3 people penalised on the opposition team that game. One of them two of them were penalised for using dice that, quite frankly, were very confusing. They had symbols on both the 1 and 6 side, both on the 1 and the 6. So there was the first infraction those guys had. So they were warned. It's very hard to do much more because the argument comes, or he was picking up, he scored more saves, or he was doing less saves. But without being there as a referee, it's very hard to say, I believe you over you. Even if especially if I have personal relationships with teams, I might have relationships with players, and I could trust that player, but it doesn't matter. In the context of a referee, I had to be unbiased. I had to put my personal relationships to one side. And so because these 2 players had no issues raised against them in the tournament before, it was a warning. And again, because we ourselves had no clear evidence to say that they had deliberately done something. However, one of the other players did get a yellow card because he had been warned by me, actually personally by me, earlier in the tournament about unsportsmanlike conduct. And he was again doing a similar thing, exhibiting not similar, but he was being very unsportsmanlike, to say the least. And this was witnessed by a referee as well. Not myself, one of my other referees was called to the table, saw what was going on, had a look, and and he was like, no. And so this was this guy's second infraction, it was deemed a yellow card to him. So the team gets penalties and he gets penalties. As I talked to Chris and Ridram about afterwards, the issue is This happened in the 6th round. And if we didn't know, for example, if these players have been doing this in earlier rounds, they'd be like, hey, you guys have been doing this before. Now this is really an issue. It's not a one-off thing. It's not a misunderstanding. This is an issue. Like the guy who got the yellow card. Not calling out the Canadians at all, but I got told by the Canadian captains that other teams had said to them that they'd also had issues with this particular team. Right. And my question was, well, why did no one notify me of this? But there is issues. There are players. I mean, I've been doing this. I've been at the EC for 12 years. 6 as ref, 6 as player. I know pretty much all these guys. I mean, I know everybody there. Obviously, not the new guys. But I know a lot of the returning characters, and I know which ones to keep an extra eye on. And yeah, and if people do step out of line and we see it and I see it, it do come down heavily. But like you say, there's 5 of us and there's 144 tables. We can't be everywhere at once, unfortunately. And so it really is on the players, on the teams, on the coaches, that if there is an issue, to grab us straight away. Just grab us, let us resolve it.
Canada would finish the tournament by bouncing back against Norway and wrapped up with a 3-2-1 record that was certainly a sign of improvement over 2018. Here's Chris's final thoughts on coming back for another year, prepping for 2020, and a shout out to one of his favorite players of the event.
So I'm thinking about hanging on to it. I think we're making improvements. It was actually kind of funny. After playing Belarus, I was ready to hang up the jersey and maybe throw it in the garbage can. And then we played Norway, and we won the Best Sports Award at the end. And it kind of gave me a little bit of a rejuvenation. You don't really you can't let other people have an impact on your emotions, and you can't let things change it. So I think I am ready to go to Luxembourg and maybe go 5-1 or 6-0. So one of the things that really helped is this year we went back with 4 veteran players. So these are guys that somewhat already understood the system, understood the matchups, kind of understood the way that the venue, just little things. And so it made it a lot easier. Didn't have to hurt as much. So we would like not all or any, but because I'm sure some of the guys don't want to come back. I'm sure some of them do. But we would like to maybe kind of build on our experiences and get maybe some more of a veteran squad going, which would be nice. A lot of countries do that. It's a lot of the same people, which is unfortunate, but that's what it takes to win, right? You can't just go once and expect to win. So if I had like an MVP trophy for our squad, it would go to TJ Lanigan. He did pretty good on the table. He thinks he's hot stuff, and he kind of is. So. But I would say the real surprise with TJ is that he was more influential and more helpful off of the tabletop. He's one of those guys that would drill you. He showed up to every meeting. He showed up to every tournament. He would call people out on bad lists or mistakes, but not in a negative way, in a positive way. He would take the time to explain strategies and movement to people and making sure that they're playing their games correctly and how to use the terrain correctly. And he did like lots of little things, like he would call the cabs every day for the team, and he would book our dinner reservations. And, not every night, but he did it more than most, I would say. And he definitely kept our morale up, which is, I think that might be a shock to a lot of people. But I think he's a really good guy. So.
Chris, we couldn't agree with you more. TJ Lanigan's practically a third co-host around here. We always love having him. And hey, maybe we'll see him again back with Canada next year, or who knows? Maybe he'll be repping the old US of A. We'll have to find out. Look out. Here comes the bump.
Tournament news.
Hey guys, this is Nick Nanavati from Knights of the Game Table Pro, where I teach you how to become a better 40K player. And you're listening to 40K Stat Center.
In the lore of American international team competition, there are but 2 monoliths that stand above all others: the 1980 Miracle on Ice gold medal winning men's Olympic hockey team, and the 2018 Miracle on Dice ETC champions. Their performance, a perfect 6-0 tear through the very heart of the European meta, playing lists that were a full 6 months behind, will not be one that is soon forgotten. Except by our very own Pablo for some reason.
However, Captain Sean Naden clearly had a vision, or at the very least a significantly profound hallucination for assembling a back-to-back championship squad.
He took action with aggressive off-season changes, including moving on from long-term Team USA stalwart Nick Nanavati. At nearly the same time, he began to openly encourage the team to juice.
Sean nearly turned over the entire roster, returning only Brad Chester and Nick Rose from 2018, likely because they were both physically intimidating and also too old and deaf to hear or understand that they had been cut.
Naden dug deep into a well of true grit American talent, dispatching bald eagles to the four corners of the continent to tap Mike, the fuck you looking at, Brandt, Werner, Jason Bourne, Alex Deep Strike Fennell, and of course the late and great Jeff in Control Robinson.
With the sudden passing of Jeff, the team turned to Josh Connett to fill some pretty enormous shoes, and he joined the team in Serbia to play Jeff's list with only a few weeks' notice.
To give us a rundown of the Team USA's full tournament experience, we turn it over to their lovable scamp of a coach and probably the greatest man and best general in our hearts, Adam Abramowicz.
And going into it, obviously we had a big obstacle to overcome. Losing Jeff 2 weeks prior was a huge hit because he was right up there, one of our top 4 players, if not higher, on the team. And Ender stepped in and he did a great job. He had a tough week, but we're so happy that he was able to be there and fulfill that 8th player role for us. We played great teams the entire way. There were no slouch teams for us at this event. We played Ireland round 1, who finished, I believe, in 9th place. So a top 10 finish there. I believe Sweden was 8th or 7th. We played Greece, who was the lowest placing of all the teams that we played, but a really solid team in 16th place. England, Sweden, and Poland. I mean, our 2 losses were to the gold and bronze medalists. Now, going up into that final round, we were in position that if England loses and we win, we could potentially be playing for gold. That's how close we were. And even if we draw or win and England still wins, we were right there for a 2nd or 3rd place, a silver or bronze medal. And we were really confident that we were going to do that when we were paired with Finland in the final round. We spent a solid hour, 45 minutes pairing. We felt really confident pairing against Finland. They are a good team, but I think that we win that game, not to take away from them because they're a very solid team and they were right there in 3rd or 4th place as well. But I think that we paired better against them. Getting at the last minute as we're ready to sit down and do pairings, hearing that the pairings have changed, we need to look at the brackets, and finding out that we were playing Poland was kind of a hit right to the gut because Poland's a really good team. They're 3 or 4-time WTC champion. They always present well at ETC, and they brought good lists. They're very talented players. It was not going to be an easy game. I think maybe we made a few missteps in the pairings there, especially in the confusion pairing for Finland. Yes, they had a chaos list. Yes, they had a Tau list, but they were very, very different. And I think that we went into that one just a little bit unprepared, which is to be expected given the situation. This team is a team that you should be really proud of. The 6th place is absolutely astonishing considering the fact that we lost one of our best players. And in a lot of these matchups, our predictions were actually quite low in the 62, 65, 72 point ranges. Those are losses. If you achieve those points, you need 75 to 85 for a draw. So when you look back and you see that we started out with low predictions and these guys pulled home 109 points out of these matches, 119 points, 120 points out of these matches, something along those lines. I might be missing a few of them, but those are big numbers. And going to those guys as the coach and saying, look, early on, this is what we need you to get at least, and this is where we're at. So really, we want 10 points from you to make your prediction, but I really need 14 to 16 from you. guys like Brad Chester and Nick Rose are able to go out and do that. Mike Brandt, who was in the scrum all day, playing hard matches, low scoring matches, bringing home 16 points, 18 points in games that are, predicted draws. Sean obviously went out there. He 20'd every match that he played. He's one of the best players in the country. Gotta give a shout out to Werner Bourne. I mean, he came in here not with a lot of confidence. I think he personally didn't feel like he was ready to play for this team or belonged on the team, but he obviously did, because that's Sean's commitment to him for doing such a good job of coaching last year. He 18'd a 7 Eldar flyer list with his Necrons. That's unbelievable. Warner went out there and got those points. I'm so proud of him, and he listened. I mean, when we were in a tough spot with Poland, he says, "What do you want me to do here? Do you need me to play cagey?" And I said, "Well, if you play conservative, how many points do you think you can get?" And he said 5 or 10, maybe 10. I said, "Well, you got to go for it." I conversed with Sean about it. I asked Nick about it, and at that point, because the predictions were so low and what we were looking at, I said, "You know what? Go for broke." And he listened. It ended up being a loss for him, but he listened to exactly what his team needed. Really proud of him. Mike Brandt, he doesn't get to play at a lot of the big tournaments. He's busy running his own. And I think he was a fantastic selection this year. The guy proved that he's one of the best players in the world. Phenomenal guard and Blood Angels player. He did work slow and steady every game. It always came down to the final rounds, but it was always a slow uptick and a slow trajectory in Mike's games, which was amazing to watch. Stephen Ford Juice, I mean, you put him into those mirror matches, he's going to get some points. There was one tough game against Poland, but he performed really, really, really well this year. I mean, again, staying on top of that trajectory that he's been on all season long, proving that he deserved a spot on the team. Alex Fennell, I mean, I feel bad for him because he played really, really hard matches. I don't think that we quite got him into the right positions to score points. We put him into a lot of positions that were coin flips or draw type scenarios, which is really hard to do 6 games in a row. But Alex is a champion. Can't speak highly enough about the character of that man. Nick Rose played really well. Everybody knew what his list was going to do. They saw that list. It was a big shocker for the ETC once we presented it at ATC. I think he did really great. He turned a lot of low-scoring, scrummy games into wins for us. Really solid player, and his contributions to pairings are fantastic. You can't not talk about Brad Chester. The guy's an absolute beast. He's going to get you those points. He's another scrummy player that can really swing some games. I think he had some tough matches and some bad luck. I mean, he went into games that we knew that he could do well at, and his opponents just rolled lights out, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. He just had bad luck all week. But he still got those damn points for us. Really proud of Brad. Ender, I mean, he was in a tough spot. He had a lot of tough matches, and you give him credit when we were playing Greece. We needed big points from him, and it wasn't looking good early on. He kept telling me for 4 rounds, four turns, it's going to be a 0, man. It's going to be a 0. I'm like, dude, I just need you to get something for us, because that was a really tight matchup. We underestimated Greece completely from the start. They're a very solid team, a new team this year. And round 5, Ender's like, I think I'm going to get some points in this match. And he pulled out a 20 for us. So we were all really proud about him. And I think that was really good for his morale. And, you can't say enough about Sean Naden. Probably the hardest person to coach in the world because he doesn't give you a lot of information. You don't really quite know. He doesn't like to give up too much. I don't think he wants to know his opponent, to let his opponent know how he feels about the match, because that might affect the way that they play the game, which is really smart. But from a coaching perspective, it caused me a great deal of anxiety because some of his matches looked really close because he plays such an elite army. You can't think about how, he can be scoring, and, sometimes midway through the round, he'd just kind of wink at me and he'd say 20. And other times I wouldn't know at all. I just had to hope and pray that he was going to get me those 20 points, and he did, especially in that Danish game because it was so close. But late in those games against Denmark, again, another really talented team, we started to swing upwards with Nick, with Brad, with Mike, obviously with Werner. And even though Sean's game took a lot longer than ours, we were waiting for his to come in. We had scored 96 points before Sean had finished Played really great teams. Denmark was fantastic. Obviously, Sweden, they're great friends. England, now the new champions. They all played great games. They brought great lists. Poland, obviously, is a fantastic team. Greece surprised us. Ireland, 9th place. I mean, we played good teams the entire time. You know, from my perspective, I mean, it was emotional for me, especially after day 2, rallying back to beat Sweden, a really solid team that knows us better than anybody else in the tournament. They know our lists. They know the skill level of our players. There was no guesswork for them. They knew exactly how to play against us, and watching my guys win that game was probably the best moment for me all weekend. You know, nearly brought a tear to my eye after we had submitted those scores. Team really, really rallied after that loss to England. So, you know, the big takeaway from this is, you know, although the record shows 6th place, we were right there. I'm so damn proud of every one of the players on this team, and I hope that all of our American fans and international fans of Team America are just as proud. These guys really went out there. They did it for country. They did it for Jeff. They did it for each other, and they gave me an amazing experience. It's something that I will never, ever forget. One of the best experiences of my life, and I can't thank them enough for it.
You guys really did put on just an amazing performance that anybody should be proud of. You went through more than any other team possibly could at that event, and almost came out on top. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Everyone here was rooting for you. Even I myself, the most nationalistic of Canadians, really, really dug down deep and prayed that Team USA would come out on top. Let's cut to a bump.
Tournament news.
I'm Lawrence Baker.
And this is the B-Bone from Tabletop Tactics.
You're listening to 40K Stat Center.
How appropriate that Ben Bonner would be their lead-in for the next team. Australia. In the real world, it is considered a land of kangaroos and boganism, and a place that is very, very, very far from Serbia. In the Warhammer world, it has built up a reputation as a backwoods country, still coming into its own and running comped events with weird criteria, players winning large major events with odd lists that some this side of the world wouldn't be caught dead with. And yet, those views may be short-sighted, probably ignorant, and are at best incorrect.
You see, this country, this Australia, it is made up of a rugged and foolhardy people. Think of them as the Irish, but with less whimsy and more poorly developed reasoning skills. That said, they are friggin' crafty. Descended from thieves, pirates, and tax evaders, they have been perfectly honed as wargaming connoisseurs, able to pull victory from the jaws of defeat in ways that you would never even dream.
In years past, Australia has struggled to have a definitive presence at the ETC. The cost is generally very prohibitive to leave their godforsaken land of poisonous and STD-riven creatures, and so often they were forced to bring their B team, i.e. those that could afford the ticket.
This year was different, though. This year they strove for greatness. They dug deep into their pockets and through some kind of warp-touched means managed to convince 8 of their absolute best players and another guy to make the trek all the way to the other side of the earth. They knew the competition would be absolutely balls deep and that they needed to be at tip-top shape.
We had the dream, we had this dream of getting a podium in ETC this year. We put in more work than we'd ever put in before. We took better players we'd never taken before. We had this just pipe dream of getting somewhere near the top and of putting Australia on the map, and we crushed it. We went up until the last round. We were 4-1-0, so we'd undefeated with one draw, round 1 versus Italy, which actually turned out to be an absolute blessing.
In preparation for following this Australian dream, they brought players like Adam the Dromedary Camilleri, who you just heard there.
Liam the Good Dr. Hackett.
Eric Lethargy Incarnate Lethuris.
Peter Redbeard the Dirt Pirate Platel.
Jeremy Marigold.
Hayden the Loose Unit Walduck.
Matt Plague Hulk Morrisoli.
Jake Tim Tam O'Grady.
and Coach Josh Dewey Decimal Diffie. Let's hear from him.
So basically with the ETC, for those who haven't been involved, there is some really easy teams to play against. And by easy, I mean, not as in skill level. I'm talking about easy-go-lucky kind of people. I think Australia, US, England, really nice teams to play against. There are some teams which are a little bit down the line, I'd say harsh but fair.
I would say rigid.
Rigid's fair. So we went in basically saying, hey guys, if you have issues, call me. I'm the one that has to deal with it. You can keep playing your game afterwards without have to be the one who says no.
Yeah.
So that was, for the first couple of rounds, it was pretty full on. I won't lie, it was pretty full on. When we played England and probably France, it was easy. I didn't really do anything, if I'm honest.
So Diffie mostly keeps the ducks in line, like he keeps everyone on track, set towards their goals or whatever we're projected to score in that round, and really just checks in and see how we're going. So for those who don't know how ETC works, a coach is absolutely necessary if you actually want to have a chance
If you want to win.
Otherwise, you have no interaction with the other players. You need to know how you're tracking. You need to know what your goals are and where you're at and where your team's at. It's really, really vital.
So we had a couple of rounds. We had a couple of rounds where we had some games that could have been a bit of a coin flip, and other games we pretty much had to hold back on pushing for things until we knew how they went.
Yeah. So not to risk the.
So having a coach means you can assess whether or not a game is good or bad mid-round, and whether or not other games need to push for points or just play defensive.
Team Yellow and Green started off the ETC on what many would consider a low note, but not them. Facing off against Italy in the opening round, they still had some kinks to work out of their system and managed to only pull a draw against the masters of the spicy meatball.
The next two matchups saw Aussies begin to come into their own. Rounding out their first day was a win against Austria and a pairing with Ukraine to start their day two. Games 2 and 3 saw Matt Morisali and Jake O'Grady score big 20-0 wins against both the Austrians and the Ukrainians, with Eric Lathuris and Liam Hackett providing further huge numbers and support.
On would come Spain to close out day 2, and the boys didn't show any sign of slacking off, drawing out a huge 111-49 win off the hairy backs of the loose unit and the good doctor. We tried to get a feeling for how Australia's top players felt about how the event was coming along going into their day 3.
So Australia's best ever recorded score prior to this weekend was 15th, and that was in, I think it was 2016. Or is it 2015 or 14? Something there, in Greece in ETC. So our first benchmark for this team was to produce the best ever result for Australia. And by the end of day 2, we'd done that. We'd gone 3-1. We were undefeated. And so we blew off a lot of steam on night 2. And we actually did stuff all pairings. We sat down and we adjusted our scores based on the mission. And then we went out and we enjoyed ourselves and we all high-fived. And then we came into this morning, really serious, humble, ready to go. And we got the job done in round 5 and we were.
This was huge. Australia moved into day 3 at 3-0-1 in third place behind the undefeated Russia and England and facing off against an intimidating French team. This round would be balanced on a fine tip, with both teams getting 4 wins apiece. The turning point would be Adam Camilleri and Hayden Walduck taking bad matchups and pulling out just minor losses, allowing for the Marigold, Eric Lathuris, and Liam Hackett to push them to 4-0-1 with critical big wins.
And so Team Australia, the little engine that could, pushes into the final round of the ETC as one of only 2 teams without a loss, and then they meet up with the Giants. This team of filthy degenerates and loosely moral souls walked into the lion's den.
Against England, it was rough because the end result was really close. We were only a few points off a draw. But the first, I think, 3 results in was zeros.
So 20.
We had a horrible, all of our really bad matchups were early in the round. All our good 20-point wins were at the end of the round. And it was pretty tense.
It really shows England's caliber that you know, they were able to get 20s quickly off us. We had to grind them all out against them.
But we got them.
We did. We still got them.
So, for example, I had Matt Morrisoli on about turn 3 tell me that he was on a win. How many, did he need a big win? Because if he needed a big win, he could basically dark matter crystal a unit really deep into the opponent's lines. It could go badly, but if it went well, he got a big win. If it went bad,
you got a medium.
He probably lost.
Oh, yeah.
And so as a result, we had to know whether or not we needed the points. If we didn't need the point, I'd say play defensive and get me 15 points. If we needed them, I'd say I'm not sure how fresh your listeners are, but I'd say go balls deep. Looking at the results, I'd say it was more arse than class, a bit of luck on my end that the calls I made where people had to go big paid off. Because, of course, if I say go big and they lose, then we could lose the round.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when I was saying go big, we were probably going to lose the round if they didn't. So there was a few rounds where playing aggressive was the only option.
This was a rough matchup, and the Aussies knew it. As Diffie said, they needed to make some Hail Mary plays early on, and it did not look good. Hayden Walduck was forced into a bad matchup against Manny the Leprechaun Shima, and had to try hoarding the objectives into a tight space on one half of the board, only for Manny to steal the deployment roll and overwhelm him in a tide of bodies, furthering the defeat by forcing an extra round on a roll of a 6, and bumping himself to a 20-0 win by doing so. Adam Camilleri, Peter Platel, and Eric Lathouris would also take vicious early 20-0 losses, leaving the English on the cusp of a quick and brutal victory.
But the Aussies soldiered on. These filthy colonials would not back down. Jeremy the Marigold himself would pull out a 20-0 victory from what at one point may have been a defeat, and Jake the tiniest 1-0 Grady would as well. Matt number 1 Morrisoli would then pull off a 15-5 win with just minutes left in the round and bring England right to the edge of a draw. The score was now 85-55, and England needed to rely on their own merc with a mouth, Nick the former Brown Magic Nanavati, who was paired against the good doctor himself, Liam Hackett. Now, Nick has been one to talk a little smack about the Australian meta himself, and Liam was aware that there was something he could use there.
I don't think he wanted that matchup, but I think that to be blunt, I think he expected me to be bad. I think he really did.
Unfortunately for Nick, he was wrong. Liam would proceed to drop down a serious whooping on the Master of Masterclass 40K, outscoring Nick in almost every aspect of the game and putting him against the ropes, bloody and bruised. And when the final tally came in, Liam had won, but not by enough. 17-3, England wins.
But fear not, my lads. While this tale of the underdog does not end with a trophy being raised on high, you can expect only greater things from the land of Marmite and poor decisions. As the Australians say, how good is your own toilet?
Man, it's such an amazing feeling to, I don't know, feel like you belong, feel like, because forever Australia's been this, upper to bottom middle, somewhere around the middle. Like no one takes us seriously as a nation. No one thinks we're contenders. And man, like we came to town, we came to play, and a lot of people were impressed. And there's a really great indictment by so many amazing players and amazing members of our community. I'd just like to say this is just the beginning. This is literally the first step on our road to becoming, hopefully, an absolute top table staple at the world level.
If you're a fan of the Down Under Network or Godhammer Gaming or Team Aussie at all, you should know that hanging with the boys is more important than winning.
Oh, the week with the boys was the best part of the ETC.
Which bit of the boys?
Yeah. Oh, the pina coladas.
Yeah. What a bunch of wankers. Let's cut to the bump.
Tournament news.
Scary here from Scardcast, and you are listening to Stats Center.
But the first place on the 40K tournament on ETC 2019 goes to Team England!
Lions, and Lions, oh my. If we hadn't blown the lead multiple times already, Team England are your 2019 ETC champions. Bringing the title home for the first time since 2012, this was a squad that certainly came prepared to smash. For an introduction to the team and their performance this year, we turn things over to the Dread captain, Josh Roberts.
This year we felt really good going into the ETC. After the lists, looking at ourselves, America, Poland and Germany, you always have to look at because they've won it so many times. Sweden have won it before, looked at them. Russia always have a different meta, but we felt like our lists were right at the top, as good as any other teams, and we felt we had a good chance of winning this year. First round draw, we ended up with Finland, strong team, often a top 10 team, and we've played them before a few years ago, and I get on well with their captain, and they felt they had a really strong team this year. So no easy first round, which was good for us. We wanted to go there and compete. So we played Finland first. We had a great round against Finland. Then we played Germany, who've won it multiple times. Then we played the US. We played Poland as well. We played Russia. And then we played Australia for the final. So we had no easy rounds at all. In the end, we ended up playing 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th, 8th, and 10th. So proper run there. But it was really good. All super tough rounds, and glad that we got the win in the end. Felt the team performed really well. We had set goals for each army list, what we wanted it to do, how we were going to use it. Have to adapt to each team because their meta will be slightly different. Their pairing process is different, so you adapt to how they're going to play. But overall, all of our players performed as we wanted them to. Our prey lists scored well, with Tony, for example, running the Eldar Flyers, scoring 114 out of 120 points. Our guard list did really well, scoring over 100 points. I did well with my own list. I was predicting myself around the 70 or 80 mark. I did 91. So everybody performed really well. There was the round we really had to be mindful of and think about how the pairings were going to work was the Russian round, because their meta is so different. They really run some anti-meta unique lists that we don't see in the European tournament scene or the American tournament scene. So that we did quite a lot of planning for that. What are their purposes of their lists, making sure we're not missing any tricks, and then how do we manage that with our lists are probably more standard European meta. Turning points, I think the big thing for us was, as I said, we had a tough run. We didn't play any easy teams or anything like that. We had stiff competition from round one all the way through the event. But I think the big one was the belief for us kept growing. We felt confident going into the event, but then we played Germany early, and Germany have won the ETC multiple times. It's between Germany and Poland who've won it the most times. They've really dominated for those two for the whole since the ETC started. And then we got a really big win against Germany. We also then got a really big win against Poland as well. I mean, a win is 86 points, and both teams we beat 130 plus out of 160. So really, really big wins, which really gave us belief that we can do it this year. We can go all the way. And then we also played the Americans, and the Americans are the reigning champs, won it last year, had a really strong team, and we managed to get a win against the Americans as well. And I think that was really, at that point, we knew we still had the Russians who'd been smashing other teams to come, but after beating the Polish, Germans, and Americans, we were like, no, this is our year. Their confidence was high. We knew we could beat anybody going into those final few rounds. No, just finally, I think for me, the big thing for this year is we've put a lot of hard work in with prep, practice, going to events, going to as many team events as we could do as a team, fine-tuning lists. But I think the biggest thing was how good our team camaraderie was between each other. There was no real egos. People had different roles in the team. We knew some people were going to be higher scoring than others, but everybody's role was important. We had a number of coaches that were fantastic for us at this weekend. I mean, I really want to say thank you to our Marcus, Tom, and Nathan, who did the coaching for us. I don't think, with the way the game is now, how complex all the different matchups are, I don't think you have a chance of winning an ETC without a coach that really helps manage the round mid game. So I think everybody had a fantastic camaraderie between us. We got on really well. We were very, I think, I'd like to hope, professional in the way we viewed it like a sports team would, in that we had to prepare for each round properly. Our coaches were fantastic, and I think that really helped us get over the line and win this year.
And now to round out the show, we'll hand things off to one of our UK correspondents, current Team Wales player and former Team Canada mercenary and Heffelfinger roommate, Tom Layton.
Although he, for some reason, doesn't know what the title of our show is, Tom was kind enough to chase down two of the ecstatic and drunk hooligans that comprise Team England, friend of the show Tom Higginbottom, and other friend of the show, Manny Chima.
Hi guys, I'm back with the Frontline Gaming 40k Stats Show, and I'm here with Tom Higginbottom of Team England. That's pretty scuffed. That wasn't as good as the last intro. How are you doing, dude?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You have a nice trip back?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward.
Didn't have to drive all the way across the continent this time?
No, 2 flights.
I know. Who would do that? Who would do such a thing? So we're good. So you were playing with, you were with Team England this year, right? Yeah. And you guys obviously won, but you had a bit of a change in your role this year, because last year you were on the playing team, and this year you were taking more of an analytical and support role in the team. And you were coaching the team. So how was the transition from playing in the team last year to coaching, and what was it kind of like having a different perspective on the round?
It was quite nice to be honest. You don't get that stress of when you're in a big round and you're like you've done your matrix, you predicted your 15 or something like that, and now you need to go get your 15, and that stress is something else. But it was there was different aspects of stress to it, because you're walking the line and you're seeing all late games and you're seeing players do things and you're like, no, why are you doing that? No.
So for a bit of
moment, I saw a player like line up a sort of charge through a crater, and I was like, no, but it turns out he wasn't actually going to charge. He was just replacing the screen. That was
was that code by any chance?
No, it wasn't. It was someone else.
Okay, I won't ask you to name names. That's unfair. But just for
just said it was. They were just replacing the screen, so it wasn't. They weren't actually going to make a mistake. But you don't know that, and you can't ask the players anything about the games, as it's going on.
And you're tracking 8 games at the same time, and what your role really is because what ends up happening is before a round, you'll have each of your players predict what they're going to get out of certain games, right? Yeah. And if some games start going badly and you're looking like you're going to get fewer points, you need to find those points elsewhere if it's like a close round. So each game is scored between 0 and 20. So if you're predicting a 15, that's a good score.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is if you get to play a matchup where you predict 0, you're totally fine because you can't come back with any less, right? So there's no stress.
Yeah. A lot of players actually prefer playing sort of those games because if they come back with, say, 3 or 4 points or 5 out of that, then they're really happy because they've just gained 5 points out of a game that they had no right to.
Yeah, exactly. And how did the pairings work? Did you have much of a handle on the pairings?
No, not so much. That's very much Josh's and Tony's sort of area of expertise. But once players sort of got their pairings and they got their matchups, some of them would come over and we'd talk about what are the risks, what are the combos that they'll be facing, and how they kind of want to approach the game. If it's good or bad, if it's a bad game, then perhaps they want to just be cautious and sort of defend a couple of points, or they need to push for the points.
So for those of us that don't know, because this reaches quite a lot of people in North America specifically, where they're very ITC focused, how exactly does pairings work, and how do you get each individual player playing their game in an ETC round?
So the teams sit down at a table and they roll off, and the winner gets to place the first defender. So the first defender could be teams approach this in all different sort of manners. Some like to put their strongest lists forward, that doesn't have. It may only have one answer, so then the opposite team will have to put two armies into it, and they'll obviously just take the one that they feels the best for them, or they could take the other one, the worst matchup, if it meant that it's better for the team as a round. You know, it's like, say they don't want that one army to remain in the pairings until the swing round or something like that. They'll take it out. And obviously the first defender will have the first pick of all 8 tables as well. So sometimes a list is designed to play on a very specific type of board, either very light or very heavy. And they have to go down early to sort of grab those tables before anyone else does. Otherwise, the list just doesn't work. We saw this year there was a lot of janky sort of character lists or heavily dug in sort of lists that they're quite difficult to dig out of their sort of entrenched positions, if you will, like a Sisters Army or some of these Primacy type things that were like, you know, the 2 up save 2 wounds models that you have to go and actually physically go over there and dig them out. If you've been instructed to go get your 15 points and your opposition's just sat on 3 objectives in these ruins, it's kind of difficult to dig them out. But if they were on an open board, that they wouldn't have that. So it's important for some teams to sort of go out early and pick their relevant board.
Yeah, absolutely. And the objective, obviously, with each team is to try and get as many good matchups as possible, because you have a number of points that you need to get to win a round. So there's 160 points available over the 8 games, 20 points per game, and if you get 86 or more points, you win the round.
That's correct.
So, yeah, you're aiming to try and get that. And you've been to VTC quite a few times, so you're very, very familiar with kind of how the pairings works, and both how you approach working out how many points you think you can get from a matchup in a certain mission, and then obviously on the other side as well, having to go around and looking at each of the games and understanding how many points you think they're going to get out of that mid-game, right? So you have a lot of experience with this. So what do you think made the difference between England this year, where you've obviously won the event, and England last year, where you came 5th, or England the year before and they came 4th, and so on and so forth?
In the pairings specifically, or team?
Just overall? Just overall. The pairings too.
Well, this year we just got our heads down and we just worked harder. To be honest, obviously we had a stronger playing staff potentially this year, or the roster in general was potentially just stronger all round. But we put the graft in this year. We studied all the lists. We looked at the weird list, even the Russians.
Even the Russian lists.
The Russians who thought no one understood their lists. We knew what their list did.
Yeah.
Because we tested them, we put them on a table, we dug through them, we played with them in some instances. So we knew what was coming. Yeah. Really.
That's a really good call as well. Yeah.
There's nothing better than actually just practicing. To be honest, you can talk about it all you want, but you need to just put the reps in. You need to get the games done.
And even with that, you guys were exceptionally thorough, because we had Nathan going around, I think, at the end of day 2 of ETC, and he was talking to like the Welsh guys and the Swedish guys and the Polish guys, I think, because we'd all played the Russians. So we knew what their list kind of looked like, and Nathan was going around trying to work out if they did anything that you guys hadn't expected. But I guess that's also one of the benefits of having a larger kind of support staff as well with England, right? Because it means that you can get multiple practice games going on. Like you have these 3 guys who are there to also help you play test lists and understand exactly what they do.
Yeah, and we knew they'd been practicing against our lists as well. To be fair, so if you don't do that, then you're already at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and that obviously would have made for a very interesting round, because you guys played the Russians in round 5, right? So I can imagine that was quite a stressful experience, knowing that it was going to be a really tough round, and this was basically the round to decide who would play Australia, as it turned out, to win the ETC. So what was it like walking up and down the rows like in that round, where you have all these guys that you've worked with and care about really stressing and grafting for points?
Yeah, it was pretty stressful. I think the Polish round, the round before, was more stressful.
Really?
Because after we paired off, it looked tight. It looked really tight, and we needed a couple of things to go our way, like first turns. There was swing games. And the Russians, after we paired, we felt really good, but we just had a couple of things just go horribly wrong in 2 games that were predicted to get 15 each, and both those games came back in total 3 points.
Oh, but
after a predictive, So had those weird things not happened, we could have, we potentially, arguably, should have potentially beat Russia 110 points, maybe 103 points, something like that.
Yeah,
but we didn't.
I still think that's one of the hardest things to do, though, because when you've got a really, really good matchup in theory, and then you go out and play it and something goes horribly wrong, it's very easy just to lose your head or just collapse a little bit. But to still get points out of those games in the end was really, really crucial for you guys, because you did get a winning side of that draw before, obviously, the refs swooped in and did their thing. 83 it was, so we were 3 points off winning the round, which we should have had, really. One game, we got seized on in one game, and we weren't ready for it, and then we got punished heavily for it. And another game was a slow game, which is what that's how it led to the third slow game for Russia, which led to the points deduction, which is how we ended up playing Australia. So how exactly were they defining a slow game? Was it just hitting the clock onto a zero amount of time?
Not entirely sure. Was it a game that didn't potentially get to 5?
Well, I was confused because when they came out with the explanation, they said, they had some games in like rounds 4 and 5 that were slow, when I know for a fact I clocked my opponent out in round 1. So I don't know quite what happened there, but it was interesting to see.
Round 1, he ran out of time. Turn 1?
No, it was when we played the Russians in round 1, I was playing against the Gene Stealer Cults, and it ran out of time, and I had like 30 minutes on the clock or something.
So was that like the 4th slow game then?
It could have been. I don't know. Potentially. Well,
I don't know. Well, the rules pack said that if you have 3 across the team, then you get the deduction.
Right.
So the judges were just implementing what the rule pack said.
Yeah, and that worked out. Yeah, and one of the surprise packages of this year that I just wanted to very quickly touch on just before we bounce was Australia. So Australia really came out the gates this year, and normally they're kind of like middle lower of the pack, and then they drew the first round and won the next 4. So they were playing you guys in the final, and it ended up being very, very close. Can you tell me a little bit about that last round and with the results
they're really
coming
good.
in?
Yeah, they've got a really good core of players there that if they can retain them for next year and push on, like there'll be something to look at next year for sure.
Yeah, and they had some weird lists as well.
We had some early results come in.
Yeah.
For that one, and we were just waiting for 6 points, I think, towards the end of the round, which it looked like it was going to be fine, but then the Orc game swung against us. The Nids game, our Gene Stealer Cult versus their Orcs swung against us, and then but eventually I think that Nick result was enough to push us over the round, and I think Ramsey was just like, we've won the round, so we'll just leave it at that. So whilst it was just an 88 points, I think Ramsey could have got some more, so it could have been like a 91 or 2, but yeah, it was quite close. They took us the whole way.
Very good side. And finally, mate, just before we go, are you going back again next year?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so that's an instant answer. It shows how much we love the ETC over here. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
No problem. Thanks, Tom.
Bye.
We should note that Manny Chima is an absolute monster. This guy drove all the way from Serbia to his home and still managed, just like every other podcast in the UK, to provide us with an interview while driving, dropping his cell phone multiple times, possibly drunk off of a lack of sleep. He still managed to make some worthwhile content. Thank you, Manny, for everything you do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline Gaming Stat Show. I'm here today with Glasshammer Gaming and Team England's big scoring player, Manny Chima. How you doing, Manny?
Hi, bro. I'm awesome. I'm feeling really good, really happy right now.
I mean, I can imagine after how many hours have you been driving right now?
Oh, mate, I've been driving 20, 24 hours. Well, it was a bit more, actually, because obviously we've had a couple of stops, but, mate, the amount of traffic jams we've been stuck in over the last 2 days, mental. We've probably done about 30 hours of driving all in all.
Oh, no. It'll be interesting to see the state your models are in after you finish that, because it's been quite hot over Europe, hasn't it, the last few days? So I can imagine it's pretty bad.
It has. But I'm 20 minutes from home. It's all good news.
This is why you're feeling good.
This is why I'm feeling good. Well, I'm also feeling good from the ETC.
Oh, there you go. Oh, look at that. That was a very smooth segue. You should be doing my job. That was all right. That was pretty good. So, obviously, you're just on your way back from ETC where you were playing with Team England. And you guys won it this year, but this isn't the first time you've been. You've been quite a few times. So I was wondering, what is it that has made Team England different this year compared to previous years, where you've done well, like you've come fourth and you've come fifth in previous years, but you haven't won since 2012, and I think the first time you were on the team was 2016. So what has made the team different this year compared to the previous years?
So basically we've grouped together a lot more, and we kind of looked at what happens to us. So, you know, in 2016, I can't remember where we... Oh, actually, no, I can remember where we came. 2016, we came fourth.
Yeah.
2017, we came fourth, I believe.
Yep.
And then 2018, last year, we came fifth.
Yep, I remember.
So the 3 years I've been on the team previously, I've come fourth, and fifth.
Yeah.
And what normally happens to us is we're in that final round for a reason. Like, we came in 2016, we came fourth, but if we won the round, we would have come second.
Because you played France in the last round, didn't you?
Yes, exactly. And then in 2017, it was the same sort of scenario. But if we win the final round, I think we would have had a chance, because we would have been joint with the people at the top. So it would have been first or second. Last year, if we won one of the rounds that we lost, we would have been on the podium. I think third place. So I think it comes down to that critical moment. And a couple of things have gone against us before, whereas this year the stars have just aligned in that great game when we needed them, and everything's just gone perfectly. But, you know, there's also the factor of, like last year, I looked at the team, and obviously we had players that were, obviously the players are really good because they are among the best players in Team England. However, like, people weren't practiced to the maximum, in my opinion. For example, even me. This time last year when we were going to the ETC, I'd been doing a lot of exams, and, you know, Glasshammer Gaming was just starting off this time last year. So I was really, really busy, and I wasn't playing as many games as maybe I should have, and things like that. So, you know, I think that plays a big part, whereas this year, the team has pulled together so hard. And when you look at the players on the team this year, you look at all 8 players, and any one of the 8 players on the England team going to an event, you would pick as a favourite to win the event.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
one of the biggest singles events in the UK.
I remember being sat in a Nando's with you in like May, and you guys were talking about how much you were communicating about all sorts of lists as well. And it was really cool to see just that kind of like understanding of not just your own list, but everybody else's.
Yeah, that's it. So we had like the main Team England group chat, and then from there we had like a couple of different group chats, and I was in a couple of them. Like, for example, there was the Chaos group chat, and in that would be all the players that know about Chaos and you know, that have been using Chaos and things like that, so they could communicate with the Chaos player, and the Chaos player could bounce ideas back between them, and we could all talk and make it better.
Oh, is that?
We had a Gene Stealer cut one, an Orc one, and, you know, so on.
Are those like all the England players that are happy with those codices, or was it like kind of a more open thing?
Yeah, so with the England players, the people on the squad.
Right.
So we had the squad chat with like all of us on there, and then we had, for example, we had the Tau chat, and in the Tau chat there was me, Ramsey, Marcus, Nathan, Josh, and Nick, I think.
Yeah.
And like the Tau ideas were being bounced back and forth in there, and we were talking about how we should use the Tau and things like that. What list we were more happy with than the others. So we had a lot of prep going into this year. And I mean, Nick also, Nick was awesome on the team. And, you know, there's a lot of people saying, oh, we've only won because Nick was on the team.
I think that's silly.
You know,
Full respect to Nick, but I think that's silly because you guys, as you just demonstrated, you guys were always in the top 5 even before Nick was around, right? And even then, you've added players like James Ramsey, who's really, really good, specifically list building. And then Robbo as well, who's very, very experienced and very, very well-versed ETC player as well.
Yeah, we've got top tier players. Every player on that team is a top tier player, and Nick was amazing for the team. I mean, in pairings, it was like having another Josh. When they were pairing, it was really good. Like when Josh and Nick were discussing pairings with each other, was awesome. It was really, really good. So he was very good for the team. He made a lot of impact in the team, and you know, when we were communicating with each other, it was really good. And even though he was so far away, he would always be filling us in on what list he was using, why it's so good, how he's changed the list now, why has he changed the list now, and he was communicating with us on a regular basis. So it was really, really good having him. It was absolutely wicked. So you know, I wouldn't change it, man, because he, you know, he wasn't picked for his team. It's not like we went out there and we said, oh, Nick, come and play for England. Do you know what I mean?
You didn't poach him or anything like that, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't selected for his team. He still wanted to go to the ETC. You know, we were like, actually, you know what? We have one wildcard pick, and Nick is a great guy. We all know Nick. He's a good laugh, and he's very good at 40k. So you know, when you have a wildcard pick like that, then you know you can do things like that. So he was picked, and you know what? He did really well. He did really, really well. So. You know, I'm made up that we came first. I totally am, because, oh man, it's been like 4 years coming, bro.
You've been trying so hard.
4 years coming.
Yeah.
I was just talking to everyone, and I was like, haven't lost a game at the ETC in like the last 3 years.
Did you lose one this round?
We've just missed that podium, and this year I lost one game.
Oh no, Manny!
I was like, you know what? I was like, that's it, Josh. Next year, I'm just gonna throw one game, bro. And we'll probably podium again. I think that's the charm, mate. I think that's the charm.
Manny loses, but the team wins. That's how it works.
But no, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
So
absolutely amazing.
We were talking about Nick, and obviously Nick didn't get picked for his team, but he still went out there and wanted to come to the ETC and found himself a team. Yeah. And you have just driven like 30 hours across the continent to go. So what makes you crazy kids do such weird things and drive and heads to go through such tumultuous lengths to get to the ETC? Why is it so special to you guys?
Mate, the ETC is the ETC, man. But for me and Dan especially, ETC was like where we've come from. You know what I mean? Like quite a lot of all of our battle reports now are like ITC based. That's because, you know, there's a lot more in ITC for singles play. And, you know, everybody feels like with the best in fact, and everybody feels like they have something to play for in ITC. So we really like that too, and we like the way that they play in ITC. So that's why all of our battle reports and things gear that way. But Glasshammer Gaming, really, we got launched and recognized for streaming the ETC last year. So for us, it's like, you know, it's awesome from Glasshammer. You know, ETC have given Glasshammer, you know, some recognition, and we've got our name out there by being associated with the ETC. So we like to give something back as well. Do you know what I mean? And we thought, let's go back again and let people view the ETC and the quality of players that come. And for me, personally, so that's business. That's, you know, Glasshammer wise. But like for me as a player. Man, it's all about the ETC. It is all about the ETC. The ETC is like the pinnacle of 40k, in my opinion. It's the pinnacle of competitive gaming in 40k. You know, it's essentially the World Cup. You're picking the best players from all different nations across the world, and finding out which team is the best of that year.
100%.
And I think that's just amazing. And I think the special bit for me comes in team play, because recently I've been going to every Belgium team championship that I can go to, every 6 nations / 8 nations that I can go to, because I enjoy the team environment a lot more than singles. I mean, you know, Tom, we're at a lot of, You know, we go to big singles events, don't we? And we meet each other all the time at singles events. And, you know, we're all there to win, but we're having a great time. And like when we play each other, we've always had great games.
Yeah.
And it's because we have a laugh with each other while we're doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to take singles events too seriously because at the end of the day, you know, there's still that component of matchups.
Yeah. Exactly.
Whereas team, you can control that, right?
Teams,
Yeah.
Mate, in team, even if you lose your game, if you go into that game and you're predicted to get 3 or 4 points, if you get 6 points from that game, you've won.
Yeah, this is the thing.
If you get 6 points from that game, you have won that game.
Yeah, there's always something to play for, isn't there? Right, even if you're getting battered.
That's it, man. And like, if you lose, you lose as a team. You know, you boost each other's morale, chin up, and that's it. You go the next round. But if you win as a team, and that feeling is just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
The last couple of points come in, and it's been a tight round, and you've won 89-71, which is.
Was that the Australia round by any chance?
Like, oh yes, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was. I know it was kind of like annoying when the Russian team started bouncing because they got a draw off you guys. Ironic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it just demonstrates the level of emotion in that hall, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were on the winning end of the draw. And there was one combat, and it went my opponent's way rather than my way because the game was going on at the end.
Yeah.
And that was the one game that I lost over the weekend, and he won 17-3. However, if that combat goes in my favor, he wins 13-7 instead.
Yeah.
So I get 4 extra points, and we go from 83 points to 87. And that's a win for the round.
I know, man.
So it all hinged on that combat, and it went against me, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah. I saw them all cheering, yeah.
Russia were on form.
Yes,
they
man.
They crushed every team they played.
Oi.
And we were on the winning end of a draw against them. We got 83 and they got 77, so I think that's great. That says a lot about our team.
I'll have you know, mate, that we got crushed slightly less badly than Sweden did. So I'll take that. I'll take that W. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I mean it's just testimony. I mean the Russians were prepared this year, weren't they?
Yeah, man.
You know what? Their sportsmanship this year was not like bad at all. They were. Most of the team were really nice.
Yes.
And they were pretty good. I mean, I played the Grey Knight player in the singles as well.
Yeah, I remember.
He was a really nice guy when we played. Like it was, like a straight down the line game. It was fine.
Yeah.
And I played Stepan in the finals as well.
Mm-hmm.
And bar one small miscommunication error, the game was fine. There was no bad play. In my opinion, the game was played by the rules, and obviously we all knew, like me going into that game, it's a draw kind of matchup, and it's a 10-10 matchup. So, but I had to win that 10-10 matchup.
You had to push
to win the tournament, whereas Stefan knew that he just had to play for a draw.
Mm-hmm.
So it was going to be very hard for me going into there. But no, it was fine, and the Russian round was a really good one, and we enjoyed it because it pushed us to the max, and coming out on the winning side of a draw was huge for us. I think we did really well.
Yeah, you did. And they had some really unconventional lists as well, so it wasn't like you guys were massively prepared against those. Like, I played against their Gene Stealer Cult and Tyranid player, and I thought this was really cool, actually, especially in the deployment type we were playing, because it was the short edges, the long edges, with the point, and it really made it difficult for me to screen him off, so I thought his list was super, super clever. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up and head back to the rest of the show?
Oh no, man! I think that's all I want to say, man. I just want to say, guys, if you're a competitive player and you want to see the top of the top, try to apply for your country, man. Represent your country, and if you get the chance to go to the ETC, oh my God, I definitely recommend going. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah. I think it's brilliant. The ETC is great. I mean, playing with your team is always brilliant, and it's just a different way of thinking, isn't it, Tom? I mean, singles events are great, but it's a whole new kettle of fish playing on teams events, and I personally love it. Like, I think I play some of my best games of 40k at the ETC when I know I'm not just playing for myself, I'm playing for the team. And I just think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely amazing. I recommend it to anybody.
100%. And if you can't get on your team, just subscribe to Glass Hammer Gaming for £2.99 a month, and you can watch it all from home and enjoy it that way.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, what we've tried to do is, obviously that's a new service that we've added, and we tried to make it, as low as possible on price, because we appreciate that, you know, people want to support their local stores, so they might not want to buy from us, so they might not want the discount that the elite members get and stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, if they want discounts, there is the Crusader option and stuff like that. But we thought, you know what, there'll be people out there that just enjoy watching games, and they'll want to get better, and they want to see, like, the top players of the top tournaments play. So we're trying to make it as cheap as we possibly can for people to just tune in and watch all the games.
Yeah, it's a really cool option, dude. Thank you very much for that. All right.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on, man.
No.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Anytime, mate.
Come on again, man.
Always good to talk to you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
That's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show. Manny Chima he's just a national treasure.
He's a legend.
Stop it. He is a treasure of England. I'm pretty sure they lock him up in a tower at night. Yeah, if you like Manny Chima, if you like a lot of the guys involved and the people who brought the fantastic stream, you got to sign up for the Glasshammer Elite, which is like £5 or something. It was £3. It was like $5. So it was very, very reasonable. That gets you monthly access to their videos and content. It's if you're interested in this whole European meta thing, well worth your dollars. Lots of players from Team England as well as the UN team, etc., etc. But that's it, folks. Really do hope you enjoyed our coverage of the ETC. It was an absolute blast putting it together. Wouldn't have been possible without help from all of our correspondents from across the globe who helped out. Folks like Antonio, Tony Pierce, Adam Camilleri, Tom Layton, and someone else we probably forgot about, One Love. Hey, Falcon, you got anything else to say?
Bye-bye.
This has been 40K Stat Center, a presentation of the Frontline Gaming Podcast Network. Like what we do? Subscribe to and rate us on YouTube and wherever podcasts can be found. Join the conversation. Follow 40K Stat Center on Facebook. You can also support the show directly by joining the Chapter Tactics Patreon and competitive 40K in general via the ITC Patreon or by grabbing a subscription to BCP.